In a fascinating encounter, Maresca just revealed how to defend perfectly with 10 men. His one-man midfield stopped the current best team in the league, and the sending off, it should have killed Chelsea. But it created a fascinating tactical battle. Arteta threw on attackers and pushed everything forward, but in a tie where everyone was talking about Caicedo and Reece, stepped forward a midfielder who isn't even known as a midfielder, and Chelsea were able to answer every question Arsenal asked. So, how did Chelsea stop Arsenal with 10 men for 60% of a football match? To find out, we need to go back to the tactical plan that occurred at the very start. This game was utterly fascinating to me, and that the man-to-man press of both teams was so intense, and because of the likes of Caicedo and Reece that have come to prominence in recent years, because I think of this man-to-man structure that we're seeing more and more, it means that these players that have got incredible energy and the ability to be press-proof but also drive with the ball as well, it means that they can do a lot of damage against the opposition. And one of those two had a stunning game. One of them, you might be able to guess, had a bit of a nightmare, but someone came to the aid for Chelsea. And in that first 35 minutes, it was hard work for both teams to get too much, but Chelsea were kind of in the ascendancy. And this is what they would do when they were in possession. It was a real man-to-man approach from Arsenal, and what would happen a lot of the time was you had Declan Rice up against James, Caicedo against Eze, Martinelli against Gusto, man-to-man pretty much everywhere, all over the pitch. And so the goalkeeper needs to become the player that becomes that extra man. Obviously at the back, you're going to leave a +1 here, which is what they did. Hincapié and Pedro dealing with Mosquera. And actually from goal kicks, Pedro would go as far as he could. Fernandes staying high up with Zubimendi. So a big space in the middle here. But it wasn't really utilised because the press of both teams are so strong. And what would happen was the ball would go over to Fofana and actually had a really tough, tight pass to be made because Declan Rice was moving across to try and stop that pass. Reece James was able to get the ball early doors sometimes, but then sometimes it wouldn't work if the press was absolutely correct, and they would go down the other end and they'd have to go long. And on this occasion, they were able to get the ball to Estevao, and Estevao was able to drive, but the two defences were so strong and so impressive in these man-to-man structures that often just that little moment of brilliance. There was a moment with Eze picking up the ball here on the edge of the box and playing over to the right-hand side. Also, actually, Pedro has some really lovely moments in this game. That those were the few fleeting moments in that first 35 minutes that allowed either team to get on top. And here, 5 minutes in, great example of it. You can see man-to-man, he's keeping an eye on Caicedo, Declan Rice, dealing with Reece James and stopping that. Marino trying to curve his run, stop that pass over to Fofana. And Chalobah was generally the free man for Chelsea throughout the game. But often Saka was ready to jump as well. Zubimendi always keeping an eye on Enzo Fernandez throughout the game. It was a man-to-man approach. On the other side of it, there were these lovely curved runs from Chelsea. And it looked a little something like this. By the way, this is the JLA Tactics board. We've been working on this for about 2 years, and it is now available to the public. And you can change all different setups. You've got the results and the lineups from teams. You've got the injury news now. You can have bespoke boards, and it's all for an incredibly affordable price. If you're thinking of, gifting your friend maybe something like this, or your Sunday league coach or your five-a-side coach, give it a go. I think you'd really enjoy it because you can really set up and take your analysis, whatever that analysis may be, to the next level. So this is what Chelsea did. They went man-to-man as well, and it was a really aggressive press. Caicedo following Eze absolutely everywhere. Cucurella taking out Saka early doors. You might notice that one. So even if there were moments where you've got this man-on-man press and it's looking difficult for David Raya, and Eze was looking to drop deep to try and help out, with Rice and Zubimendi often sort of peeling out to try and help out Mosquera or Hincapié, or even Declan Rice dropping into this area here at times, Caicedo would come with him every single time. It was so aggressive from both teams. And you can see it in action right here. The fact that Eze dropping as deep as he is to try and get on the ball in the first place. You've got those two sort of forwards, I guess, when it comes to the press for Chelsea, and Estevao and Pedro stepping in, trying to cut off those passing lanes. Eze trying to get involved with Caicedo up his bum at all times. And as you can see right here, Declan Rice and Reece James, who, from an attacking point of view in that first 35 minutes, kind of were cancelling each other out, following each other around the pitch, neither of them really impacting the game until Caicedo got sent off and it exploded the game. And Arsenal was struggling to build out from the back. Chelsea were pretty intense with it, and Mosquera, who is generally the free man in all of this, as you can see here, was creating these little triangles to bounce it off, but they weren't really kind of at it the way that they would have liked to. There was a couple of moments here where there's one moment where he bounces it off and they think they're out, but because of the really great press from Chelsea, the ball goes back, and then Mosquera again in this zone here, really interesting, because normally you would see him in a different area, but to try and get around this man-to-man press, he was actually almost playing as a DM on occasion, not all the time, but on occasion. And you can see going long, a little bit of frustration here from the Arsenal players, because Chelsea were doing their job. They were really, really impressive. Both teams were. That Caicedo red card robbed us and gave us a lot of different things. One thing that it did rob us, I've got to say, is that battle between Hincapié and João Pedro. I thought João Pedro kind of had his number on a couple of occasions. There's a lovely moment here where he was able to kind of drop into this area, steal a march in that one-on-one matchup that we're seeing all over the pitch, and then kind of make things happen. On this occasion, he does this lovely little drop of the shoulder. He then is able to play this lovely pass into Enzo. And that was a good thing on both occasions when João Pedro had a little bit of joy. It was because he was able to kind of link with the players who were running around him. So although you've got, a striker up top who doesn't really run the channels, he runs in behind, he was dropping in. And this is one where Jurgen Timber actually saved the day in a big way. And obviously Jurgen Timber is not man-to-man with Enzo Fernandez. It's the one time that Enzo was able to get away from Zubimendi, because these battles were going on throughout the game. And yeah, I thought João Pedro did really well there. And this was another one with Esteval, where he plays the ball, little header here, carries on his run and affects the game in a big way. And the ball actually drops, and Esteval's got to do miles better after Pedro had done so well and has to score there. So that was taken away from us a little bit. But what it did do is it freed up Reece James and Declan Rice to both have unbelievable games of football, in my opinion. So that man-to-man structure, once you lose a player like Caicedo, I thought Chelsea were in trouble, because of course you're going to have to go to a 4-4-1 most likely, and that means that man-to-man idea kind of goes out of the window. And so Reece James, who'd been following Declan Rice, and Declan Rice, who'd been following Reece James for a lot of the game, they both had different roles, new roles, deeper roles generally, as Arsenal looked to rotate and attack, and how Chelsea looked to hang in there ultimately. And by the way, this performance from Declan Rice had absolutely everything. It had last-ditch tackles, it had creative chances, driving with the ball, and dictating the game as well. This is the touch map from Declan Rice. Unbelievable how this guy gets around the pitch. It's such a joy to watch. And again, I feel like the footballing meta is kind of caught up with him a little bit. And so because these games are man-to-man and there's so much opportunity for rotation when you have the ball, but also you've got to deal with your man, you've got to be able to get back, you've got to be able to get forward. That box-to-box midfielder is now becoming more prominent than ever, and that suits Declan Rice down to the ground. He was so good. This is 15 minutes into the game. This is the last-ditch tackle that he makes, just driving, understanding, and he does this so often when his team is in trouble. He's able to sense that danger. It's because I think probably of that bit of a tutelage as a centre-back at times, but he's just able to sniff out the danger so well. And this last-ditch tackle is absolutely phenomenal to get there before Pedro Neto. And in that last sort of like 5-10 minutes, no one really knew what the game plan was. Both teams were trying to get back in at half-time, speak with their manager, get a new plan, because it had been thrown out the window from that Caicedo red card. And there was just another great moment where Declan Rice just highlights the energy that he has. First of all, winning the ball here, and then not just getting it and driving it, laying it off, and having the energy to run in behind and win that race. And when he wins that race, see which players you can pass to and play a first-time pass to drag out that centre-back and create a chance, which they could have scored from. And again, the game could have been so different. And this is in the 45th minute, as you can see. That energy from Declan Rice to go from one end of the pitch, win the ball, and then drive. It is there every single game. The lad, he's on a mission at the moment. I don't think we've ever been able to see a better version of him. I remember talking to Clive about this, and we were saying, like, we love him, we think he's great, but how are we seeing the best version of him? I think we're seeing the best version of him, because last-ditch tackles, driving runs like that, we saw him dictate and create as well. So second half rolls around. What happens? Well, a lot happens, and Arsenal kind of went back to their old ways somewhat. Really smart decision from Maresca to bring in that energy of Garnacho, who actually, I think, kind of being at Man United and understanding how to sort of drop in and maybe play wing back a little bit. I thought that really told in this game, actually, because his ability to drop in at times and turn that into a back five was absolutely crucial for Chelsea in terms of kind of just retaining that flat line. And that was the big tactic that Chelsea kind of undertook. And I've put these triangles here for a reason. So first of all, this is kind of before all the changes were made. You can see above me, Madueke, Gyökeres, Calafiori came off, Lewis Skelly came in, and initially kind of got involved in this build-up here. But quite quickly that kind of changed. He would go over to this area here. At times he would drop in, or at times Zubimendi would drop in there as well. But Declan Rice sort of quite quickly became that guy, that metronome there that could kind of drop in, a bit like Thomas Partey would do last year, and then kind of create from there. And if you had to go around, you could quite easily go around Delap in that initial build-up phase, because of course they play with 10 men, they've got to keep their players back. So what they would start to do was go back to those old triangles, and it was Eze initially on that right-hand side, but it felt like Arteta was kind of moving it forward more and more. And Zubimendi being another player that needed to drop in, I don't think that kind of rotation was needed as much as Arteta started to see that Chelsea were dropping off more and more. And so they made that next change, bring in Odegaard. And what was clever here, and actually the goal comes from it, is that Eze came from being in this area here to a bit more of a central zone. So check this out. This is where the goal comes from. Eze makes his way over to a more central zone. This is a bit of a screenshot of how the goal comes. And the reason it comes is because Fernandes is not compact enough with his back line, but also because of Declan Rice kind of filling out the game, having that ability to dribble with the ball and then pop that little pass into Odegaard, who's now in that area of the pitch. And what you'll notice here is Eze. Eze is over here. What are you doing over here? He was able to sort of drag James out a little bit. And what that did for me was it created a lot more space in this area here, this second 6-yard box, which allowed Merino the opportunity to create some space. It all comes from Declan Rice, by the way. Rice gets the ball, as you can see, in that 3 and drives with the ball. Eze staying out of a little bit. Initially, he wants the ball, but the focus for Arsenal regularly was going down that side. He's able to pop that ball into Odegaard. He's able to pop that ball to Saka because Merino has sucked some players out. Eze coming out initially means that Rice is out of it a little bit as well, and Chalobah is stuck over to that side. But overall, they're pretty compact, Chelsea, and I think they're okay. But what I think Merino does really, really well, and this is how Caicedo kind of hurts his team here, is that this is one of the few occasions where Fofana, because Saka is dribbling down this side and then is able to get that cross in. But because Caicedo is in on the pitch, you're kind of one man down. And so Fofana is stuck between worrying about the spaces in front of him, in my opinion, and the spaces in behind him. And via that, he then leaves that space for Merino. Look, I think when you're 10 against 10, you're trying 10 against 11, you're trying to sniff out the danger to kind of go, should I go or should I stay? But Chalobah having to go and help out, that is the big one here. If Chalobah doesn't have to go and help out Cucurella, due to the brilliance of Saka, of course, as well, everyone deserves credit for this. But if Chalobah doesn't have to go, Chalobah is here, which means Fofana is here, and he probably wins that header. So the goal comes from overloading this side of the pitch, utilising those old school triangles that we kind of know and love when it comes to Arsenal, the focus being the right-hand side far more than the left-hand side. And that led to Enzo Fernandez working over to this side a lot of the time, Garnacho coming over to this side a lot of the time, and Reece James kind of becoming a bit of a one-man midfield. Eze, who dragged him out for that first goal, actually kind of went off. And then Gyökeres came on. And that led to Chelsea being able to defend incredibly flat, but at the same time be proactive with their defending. Cucurella was sensational in terms of jumping a lot of the time. You know, when there was the moment where Saka was kind of cut inside, get at him. Garnacho, same again. Reece James constantly doing that and getting on the ball and being able to drive as well. Gusto looking to snap at heels at different times. So it was one where there was a real flat line by the end of it all, but it was one where it worked for Chelsea because I believe bringing Gyökeres and Merino was a really understandable thing from Arteta. But to allow the team to kind of suck some of these Chelsea players out, I think that could have been of use. Something I spoke about in my match reaction. The way the game played out by the end of it, utter dominance in terms of the ball and the odd moment where you could break. But it felt like that was your first line, which is kind of 5 against 1. And then those overloads were taking a bit of time instead of kind of maybe dragging out some of these plays. It's difficult when you're playing against 10 men. And I thought Enzo Fernandez and Reece James almost as a 2 a lot of the time, but dealing with the 2 halves of the pitch, I thought they did really, really well. Enzo Fernandez would stay on that left-hand side and go and look to help out. Garnacho dropping into that back line if he needed to. Reece James dealing with the right-hand side, often kind of dealing with this half space as well, making those runs if someone got sucked out at different times. But the central area of the pitch became slightly null and void because of this understanding that, of course, Odegaard is on the ball now, Timber's over on this side, so they're going to be looking for these triangles on that side as opposed to getting into more central areas and maybe having a bit of a shot, because Marina's always going to get in the box, as is Gyökeres. It's not a bad tactic at all. It just didn't work on this occasion. But I've got to talk about this man, Reece James. This guy gave us a little glimpse into how brilliant he can be as a midfielder. I really feel like we've seen a moment here with Reece James where, of course, look, you got Caicedo, then absolutely fine, that's great. But let me show you this. I thought this was really, really interesting. In the first half of the game, understandably, these are the passes received that Reece James had. Really deep, right? And look, that's fine, that's neat, that's kind of what he was there to be, sort of, he's a right back, right? But that's wrong. He showed us how good he can be. And this is him in the second half with 10 men. And what you can see with these secondary sort of little dots here, here. These are other areas of the pitch where he was getting on the ball and affecting the game, really, receiving passes. And so to do that all over the pitch, he became, essentially, in my eyes, a bit of a one-man midfield. Yes, he stuck to that right-hand side, and you can see that here from his touch map, but he was brilliant. And we saw the tiniest glimpse of it in the first half. The last couple of minutes, he was here, standing, looking to, just saying, give me the ball. Chalobah popped it into him, and we were able to get out of some pressure there. Something that not every single player can do. And Reece James, it was such a captain's performance. And I thought in the second half, he just got better and better. The goal comes from, initially, a lovely little cross from him over to the back post. He, of course, takes the corner himself as well. That's a beautiful corner. And Chalobah scores a fantastic goal for Set Piece FC, as everyone's calling them. But throughout the game, he was great. And when you got 10 men, you've got to have players who've got to get on the ball and be able to dribble. And we weren't sure if Reece James had the energy to go 90 minutes. On average, he's played 63 minutes per game this season. And that's because Maresca's been careful with him, and rightly so. But I think what's huge in a game like this, when you've got 10 men for 60 minutes, and you lose someone like Caicedo, who is 2 players when it comes to his athleticism, his ability to get out of one of the most suffocating rest defences and defensive teams in Arsenal and help the team was absolutely outstanding. And he did it throughout the game. This is a great moment where he gets there before the player, takes the contact, takes the foul. He's got the physicality and he's got the quality on the ball. Here, wins the free kick, 53rd minute, helps the team get up the pitch. You can see from these passes, 2 passes I want to focus on in particular are these 2 gorgeous passes. If you watch the game, you know what those 2 passes are, but it says everything that's great about Reece James. And I think it's really interesting when we think about players and the positions that they play and how important or unimportant they are at this stage, or that this idea that, okay, he's a right back. I think he used to be a midfielder, and I think we saw that. What an unbelievable example this is, where Gusto just kind of whacks it forward, doesn't really do much. Reece James, from where he is there initially, drives and wins the ball when it bounces back, but doesn't stop there. We are seeing the Reece James that we've been desperate to see for so long, and then he plays the most gorgeous pass. And that's not even the best pass he plays in the game, because just a few minutes later, he's at it again. In this instance, dropping deep to pick up the ball, similar to the things that we've seen with Declan Rice. And this is why he's going to be so useful for England as well, because you've got another midfielder there. Like, why can't he play in midfield or step into midfield? Initially, getting involved there. Gusto plays this lovely little 1-2 with Gusto here. He's got the quality and the drive and the pace to get into this area, get the ball back, win the duels as well, which is crucial. Wriggles away from that one, sees Eze come in as well, wriggles away from that one. And then, look, you can see Garnacho ready for that pass, and he plays it just with such ease. The technical ability of this guy is absolutely outstanding. It was a captain's performance and he stepped up, and I just thought he was absolutely superb. And this highlights it for me. So this doesn't look like much. It looks like he's doing like the Dougie or whatever it's called. But here he's waving his team up. He's saying, get up. This is in the 80th minute, people. Reece James. He's back. And it's so good to see because you can tell he's a great footballer. He's the only one to get up, to look to try and press, to move the team up after screaming to them to say, get up. And look, they're just passing around him because the rest of the lads are knackered. But what does a captain do? Captain doesn't stop. Skelly gets to the ball, looks to drive. Reece James racing back, using that strength that he has to win the ball. And it's a fantastic tackle that he wins to help the team again. He was utterly superb throughout the game. One-man midfield. He was on a mission. And this Chelsea team is going places. It really, really is. And if Reece James can stay fit, and that's always going to be the issue with him, that this Chelsea team can go very, very far. Fascinating game. Let me know your thoughts on it. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the JLA Tactics board as well if you haven't seen it yet. It's a lovely bit of kit. Lovely little Christmas present for someone. And I'll speak to you guys soon.